MIDI knows that just when you thought you had your body all figured out, bam, perimenopause. Suddenly, your hormones are raging like it's puberty round 2. You're waking up at 3 a.m. and dealing with mood swings that have mood swings. Your ears are itchy, your jeans don't fit, you need an industrial-sized fan to cool down, and you've suddenly forgotten the word for microwave. Most women in perimenopause don't know that they are, even though it can last for 10 years. They also don't realize that most of their symptoms are treatable. That's why we built MIDI Health. MIDI is a company built by women who've been through it. Our menopause experts actually listen and treat the real symptoms you're feeling. Your symptoms aren't just common, they're treatable. Schedule a visit with a menopause specialist at MIDI. Visit joinmidi.com. Specialist-led care, virtual visits, insurance eligible. Midlife needs MIDI. Results may vary. Medications prescribed only if clinically appropriate based on a consultation with a clinician. Insurance coverage varies. Check with your plan for coverage.
This Monday.com ad was created by a team of people and AI agents. Reese, our content agent, wrote the copy based on our best practices, like mentioning Monday.com 3 times. That was the second. Johnny, our coordination agent, built the timeline and kept everyone aligned. Olivia, our human creative director, stayed in the loop. Because agents are great, but they don't always know when a joke lands. She had one note: tell listeners it only takes minutes to build an agent. So, minutes. Create your own AI agent today on Monday.com.
Okay. Hello, everybody. You are not going to want to miss this episode on the Black Dahlia with the filmmakers of a new series that is going to blow your mind. But before we dive into that episode, we just wanted to announce that we're releasing a really special project that Rob and I produced and directed called Making an Exoneree.
Do you think it's possible that you could be convicted of a murder that you didn't commit? Well, it happens every day in this country.
We were invited to Georgetown universities to investigate 5 wrongful conviction cases, and what we found was shocking.
How could the justice system fail so many people?
Watch our award-winning film on the Partners in True Crime YouTube channel.
Part 1 drops Thursday, July 16th, Part 2, July 23rd, and Part 3 on July 30th. Subscribe and follow the investigation, and we want to hear what you think.
We would love it if you could show your support so we can continue to make these cutting-edge documentaries by going to our YouTube page and hit the thanks button and submit your donation.
Watch the trailer now and then stay tuned for the breaking developments in the Black Dahlia case.
I'll just sit in jail and fight it forever. They know what they did is wrong. They ignored 7 witnesses in the confession. The case is full of corruption. So I'm just going to keep fighting.
We have so many wrongful convictions because there's a rush to closure above the truth.
Innocent until proven guilty should be upheld, but it's not often.
The criminal justice system doesn't work like it does on Law and Order.
So many people believe you must be guilty of something. You wouldn't be sitting at a defense table at a trial.
Marty himself was wrongfully convicted when we were seniors in high school. His parents were murdered. He was convicted of murdering his parents.
Guilty.
And I would tell people, I have a friend who's in prison who's innocent.
6,338 days I was in prison before I was finally released. So when Mark asked me to teach a class at Georgetown to save someone else's life, how could I say no?
Our goal for this course is for this to be life-changing.
Each team of 3 or 4 kids is taking on a case of wrongful conviction.
So the shooter shoots once in the air and then 3 times at you.
Justin Baumgartner's body was recovered
Right here.
I want to know what the hell went down the night of May 3rd, 2008.
The holy grail for us would obviously be one of our 5 getting out.
Don't just walk out with blood all over you after murdering 3 people. Just go over to your neighbor and be like, hey, what's up? Nonsense.
We know it's an uphill battle. We know it's really hard to get somebody out.
Do you not agree that there are wrongful convictions?
Oh, there absolutely are wrongful convictions. This isn't one.
But we're going to try to show there's a major injustice that took place here.
The tape was stopped at least 4 times. This is evidence contamination.
Where's your sketch? Where's your micrograph images? Show me some proof that those marks match.
These are lawyers who take oaths to their profession, and they cheat, steal, hide evidence.
3 people said Valentino Dixon was the shooter, but there's 10 other people who said it was a different person.
Even if I was to get my freedom tomorrow, I'm labeled a murderer.
You literally feel like you have someone's life in your hands, and at the end of this course, I want to be able to give these people hope.
These kids are smart, They're passionate and an interest.
Good catch with the phone! Wow!
But this isn't just a class. This isn't just about wrongful convictions. This is about people's lives.
So many lawyers have been trying to get people out for years. What are we going to do? We're college kids.
You are eligible for release today.
Okay, we're back with Partners in True Crime, and this is our second episode on the Black Dahlia case, and we have the people who are investigating this case and have done an extensive documentary on this that's not out yet, and it's going to be hopefully out soon, but they have an immense amount of information about this. We have Jeff Thomas, Kimberly Lupini, and everybody knows Lenny DePaul. If you've been watching our podcast, he's been with us on a few cases, most notably the Alcatraz case. And so welcome, guys. Glad to have you back. Glad to kind of go through this stuff. So I don't know who wants to do it, but just for our audience and purposes, someone's give me a good logline brief description of the Black Dahlia case. That, you know, it's an infamous case. If diehard true crime fans really know about this case, but tell the audience, would give us the bullet points. Who wants to go?
I think Jeff would probably.
Okay, Jeff, why don't you go?
I'll jump in there. Elizabeth Short, aka also known as the Black Dahlia, has gone down in history as one of the most famous cold cases in the United States and one of the most perplexing crimes and murders in world history as well. Most people remember this for just how heinous, graphic, and just absolutely violent this was, and also sexual in nature. She was found naked on the morning of January 15th, 1947. She'd been bisected at the waist. She had endured much trauma to her face, to her breasts, to her sides. Different ritualistic things had been done to the body, and she had been drained of all her blood. So all that, if you can only imagine what it would be like waking up on January 15th, 1947, post-war America, being confronted with a murder like that. I mean, it's heinous by today's standards. It was mind-blowing back then. So the fact that it was never solved and that it had this, very unusual moniker of the Black Dahlia has just allowed it to go down in the annals of history as a legend in a lot of ways. And what we've attempted to do with this project is to show all these things that we consider to be historical or true about the case are just not that. So the first thing we wanted to do was right the ship in terms of Elizabeth, who she was as a person. She wasn't the Black Dahlia. She was Elizabeth Short. And also all these things that we consider to be a part of the story, a lot of them are fictitious as well. And we wanted to right the ship on that. So that was the whole idea behind this particular project. When we first got into it, armed with one piece of information that had been given to us by a son of one of the lead investigators. And that would kick us off on a 5-year mission that would take us from just beginning to learn who Elizabeth Short was, take us to her hometown to talk to people that actually knew her, to actually finding and dismantling the scene of the crime, because where her body was found is not where she was murdered.
Yeah. Lenny, we're going to dive into this scene of the crime here, where it was. What can you, like, when you came on board and what did you think? Obviously, you always want to do boots in the ground. That I know you, Lenny. You always want to you want to touch it. You want to get in there. You want to look at it. So what was were you who was the impetus of getting inside the scene of the crime?
Rob and Cindy, you know me. I'm going to jump in with 2 feet, and I'm going to be downrange, and as we call it, from Jump Street. Let's get back to the scene of the crime. So when I started this, and as I did with Alcatraz or Hunting Hitler or whatever other show I've been on or a cold case that I've worked on, we decided, or I did, I'm not putting my fingerprints on anything that we're going to sensationalize, come up with a bunch of nonsense and just to appease an audience or to make it look good, so to speak. So, surrounding ourselves with a great team of warriors, so to speak. I mean, you all know I hunt human beings for a living for 3 decades. Chased terrorists, murderers, rapists, whatever, across the globe for 3 decades. So, I needed homicide detectives, crime scene folks, people that knew what they were doing, especially with a cold case from 1947. I mean, you talk about historical and such a, I don't want to say famous, but it is cold case. Everybody in God knows about it from here to wherever. So it was important that we went back to the scene of the crime, not only where she was found, but her hometown, which I did. We started there. We interviewed a whole lot of people. I wanted to find out who was Elizabeth Short. You can read what you want. You can watch television, talk about documentaries. But I'm a show me kind of guy, right? So, we're downrange. We're knocking on doors, Q&A and people. Extremely important to put that puzzle together and connect the dots. So we started from square one with a great group of people, from intel analysts to, homicide detectives, crime scene folks. And I'll tell you what, we went from 0 to 100 miles an hour, and we went down many roads. And each road that we encountered, we left no rocks or no stones unturned. And it's going to be it's a fascinating outcome that we've established, and I think it's going to be an awesome ending to a very historical case.
Yeah. Before we get into the actual photographs, I have some questions here. Like, Lenny, how do you pitch? I mean, because I would imagine are these your contacts that you're bringing in, or are these people that Jeff and Kimberly have kind of surrounded you with? But how does that pitch go? Because I know how we do it. I'm curious to see how others do it.
It's a collective effort. I'm sorry. It's a collective effort, Rob. You guys know. I mean, we've worked together for years. Kimberly and Jeff certainly had their finger on the pulse. They had some folks they had spoken to before I came on board. And again, it was a collective effort. I mean, everybody had a piece of the pie, so to speak, right? I'm not an expert. I mean, I stay in my swim lane, right? I hunt human beings, and which came into play here because we had to find a whole lot of people. So, and also Teresa Payton, right? She's a former CIO at the White House with George Bush. She flips people's worlds upside down on her internet and in the dark web and whatnot. So, homicide detectives from Los Angeles that knew the case, that had worked with others in the past, that Jeff and Kim brought on board. So we all worked together, and we worked together well, and we were pretty successful.
All right, go ahead, Lynn.
No, it's amazing. It sounds like such an incredible experience, but for such a high-profile case, everybody's always looking for how did you get involved and why did you get involved. But I think that it's really interesting that you guys were able to put all of this together with an amazing team and bring new information out there, which people will find out soon.
Well, Cindy, let me interrupt you real quick too, because from the former district attorney's office to others that have worked this case forever, once some of this evidence was presented to them, one specific quote from a former DA, I mean, he said, look, you got enough to indict right now, which to us was a home run. And we're not even done, Cindy.
It's amazing. I mean, that's the thing. It's extraordinary what you guys have done.
Yeah. And then, so let's talk a little bit about the crime scene. What were some of the information somebody talked about some new files leading you to this crime scene? Let's talk about that, and then talk about what the crime scene is, the location and the structure, that kind of thing.
So over the years, Rob, we have infiltrated sources that were connected to the case. And as those sources teed off, that's how those files started coming in, at least the files that were never released to the public before. Recently, we were contacted by someone out of the blue in our Deconstructing Dahlia community that had the files of a former Gangster Squad member that revealed some information that Jeff and I were able to digest was new, never before in the 1949 and 1950 grand jury. And that evidence confirmed what we had already discovered on this case 5 years later. So we were sitting here a week ago like, oh my goodness, here's brand new files that came from the public who were concerned that this case be solved. So I'll let Jeff talk about what was in that file that was very important to segueing into the motel conversation.
Got
Yeah,
it.
just to tee it up, again, these were from, it wasn't from a homicide. This was from another division inside LAPD that took a look at this case. And it was also a bunch of detectives that were concerned about the outcome of this investigation as well. For instance, with the files that we received, handwritten by the officer in the upper left-hand corner was returned to intelligence, confidential. And we also know from his testimony that we have from another set of files that he gave to the grand jury, they asked him about those files and he's like, oh no, everything was returned. But now you have a thing to where it shows up in his personal files. The way that this individual had found them is that he was a huge collector of stuff from LA's golden era. He went to an estate sale, bought everything there because he was just buying everything from the 40s, everything from the 50s. Opened it up, started realizing, oh, this guy was an LAPD detective. Oh, this guy worked on these cases. And then he finds a folder marked Dahlia, opens it up, and these documents are inside of it. So it was a godsend that he came forward. For us, it was so important because we knew that in these files that there was something we'd never seen before, a handwritten statement by the killer detailing his comings and goings when he had been arrested in 1949. Now, one of the important pieces that we got out of this was that when he was describing his comings and goings, he was mentioning different streets. And we know that at one time he applied for a certain type of job that had to do with a LA government agency. And he applied for it. Obviously, he didn't get the job, but in his comings and goings, he was actually making a record of it, saying, hey, I applied for this job here. It was on this street, next to this street, and next to that street. Now, the interesting thing about this killer, since we've read so much stuff of what he's written, so many of his interviews, we've gone through so many books that he pointed out as well, that it's not necessarily just what he says, but what does he tell you that he does not have to tell you? And for us, it was those three streets, because we know that the government agency he was applying to did not have an office anywhere near any one of those three streets. And it just so happens that one of the streets mentioned was actually the street that this motel is located on as well. So this was one more piece of the puzzle that he was sort of playing a game of law enforcement with, trying to give them clues but not get caught. And unfortunately, this flew over a lot of people's heads. The investigative officer who retained these files knew something was up. He worked very hard to prove it. And ultimately, this guy would skip free and never go down in history or, be held accountable for what he did. So that, again, was one more thing that was pointing to this structure that still stands in Los Angeles. And it is a motel from the late 40s that we determined was the scene of where Elizabeth Short was murdered.
Wow. I want to ask Lenny a real quick question. Lenny, so these files were found in a estate sale of a former LAPD detective. Is that what you're saying? Is that correct?
Yes.
That is correct.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, Lenny, is that usually commonplace that detectives would take files home and keep them?
Let's go back a little bit and to kind of touch on what Jeff said as well. Look, and I'm not here to bash any law enforcement, especially, right? But back in the 1940s, certain departments were labeled who was corrupt, who wasn't. It's not a bad idea to get a new, fresh set of eyes and ears on a cold case. Okay. Did they miss things back then? 100%. I can tell you that because I jumped in with 2 feet a few years back with this case. Did they do it on purpose? Was somebody coerced? Did somebody have somebody in somebody's pocket? Don't know, and I don't care. I'm moving on. We want to find out who killed the Black Dahlia, who did this to Elizabeth Short. Why was she labeled as such a bad person? And as far as closure for some family members that are still out there, some good friends that went to high school with her, that's what we're looking for. Okay. Is it common for a detective, somebody in the gangster squad, homicide back in the 40s to do that? Your guess is as good as mine. However, they found it. It's there. It's just another piece of the puzzle for investigators like myself and others that are involved in this case. To put that puzzle together, and it certainly helps. It helps us, right? We also ruled out a lot of other people that have been talked about, other suspects. Everybody solved this case for the past 100 years. I don't know how many things I've read or watched or listened to, and this one did it. No, this is why that, right? So they're all out there taking their curtain calls and and genuflecting and everything else. But they're all incorrect. They're totally wrong. And the suspect that we've identified and that we've torn apart and flipped their worlds upside down is definitely the person that did this heinous, this crazy, horrific murder. But to answer your question, Rob, it's $1 million question. Is that what a detective would do back in the day, or just, here's my reports, let me put them out on the internet so somebody can buy them? I mean, it don't make sense to me, but look, can't rule anything out.
Yeah. Well, it's not the first time I've heard this, so I'm just curious. I mean, obviously, you guys are glad that he did, and you're glad that the person who found this stuff at the estate sale. I mean, those are those Easter eggs that you hope for on a case like this. So you guys found one. I was just curious just from your perspective, Lenny.
It's better to be lucky than good sometimes, Rob.
Absolutely.
If you don't mind, Rob, do you mind if I jump in for one quick second?
Sure.
This isn't the first time we've heard of something like this happening. In fact, when we had told you about what kicked this whole thing off, the son of the lead investigator telling me this tip and everything, he had told me a couple other stories of where he'd go into his dad's office. His dad would show him different shots and whatnot. And he would be looking at different photographs that his dad was bringing home that pertained to other cases as well. And he said, hey, back in the day, officers brought evidence home. They brought photographs home. They brought these reports home so they could work on it at night. So he would even talk about after his dad died, he would find these different boxes. And he said, like, one he opened up and he was looking at this one picture in particular because it was a woman looking into the camera. Her eyes were open, and he just knew something was off about the photograph. And the more he looked at it, he realized, oh, she's dead. Her eyes are totally lifeless. And then he noticed that her leg was bent at the knee. But then as the closer he looked at it, he's like, oh my gosh, her leg has been removed at the knee. So these were just different things that he found, case files, photographs, again, different individual, different officer entirely, but somebody from that era that a lot of this stuff walked home. And we have to wonder, did a lot of it ever go back?
I wouldn't rule that out, Rob. I mean, I look at it, in hunting fugitives, I brought cases home. I brought photos home to stare at for hours and still have them. So it's not unusual, I would think, for a detective who's jumped in with 2 feet and, you got a high profile media attention kind of case. Even back then, everybody in God was looking for the suspect who killed Elizabeth Short. So, you can't rule it out. And thankfully, like you said, that it was somebody picked up on it, and now Kim and Jeff have it in their possession.
I mean,
it's really interesting because when this gentleman through our forum reached out to us, his statement was that, hey, found in all these files, found this folder labeled Dahlia. But he said when he read it, he had a question. He was like, did this officer participate in a cover-up, or was he trying to preserve evidence from a cover-up? Mm-hmm. So that was his whole, again, keep in mind, he's just a collector of antiques and different historical documents and everything. But that was his assessment after reading everything.
Yeah.
And it goes back to the territorial fight of the detectives at RHD and also, or called RHD today, Robbery Homicide Division, and the gangster squad that the police chief put in place to do some investigating behind the scenes. So you have detectives that are suspicious of each other and a police chief who's suspicious of either side, comparing the work from the detectives on each side. So it does not surprise me that all these archives are coming out of the woodwork from people who are passionate about the case, who hear what we've accomplished in the last 5 years, who want to see justice served. They've all preserved this information that they were able to obtain, whether it be the officers or the gentleman who found these files at the estate sale. It's kind of crazy that people care so much to save these moments in history. And here we are 80 years later, and this particular file that came in a week ago absolutely substantiates the evidence that we already had to support the crime scene and the killer that we have targeted.
Wow.
And Kim brings up a pretty good point there too, because I mean, I'm not here to figure out the politics with the LAPD back in the 1940s. However, there was politics involved. You got homicide and the gangster squad that are formed. These detectives that jump on board. They're they have a rabbi, right? They're not getting into these squads unless they know somebody. So whose pocket are they in? Is there competition? Why does the gangster squad get a homicide case? A lot of what ifs. I don't care personally. I could care less what happened back then. I want to find out who again murdered the Black Dahlia. But you got to take it into consideration, and as you're connecting those dots, it comes into play and makes a lot of sense. And it did over the past how many years, Jeff? 5 that we've been doing this. So and Kim brought up a good point there.
Well, you guys have the luxury now because you obviously no one is involved with any of these politics. So you're just looking at all the information for face value. So you're not caught up in this, what was probably political back then where people were vying for, leverage to get the case or to solve the case or undercut the case because they didn't want the other person solving it. I mean, we've seen that time and time again in some investigations, but here, because you had you're data driven. You're not like, there's no leverage against each other here. You're just looking at a face value. So this hotel, you said that it's still standing and it's in Los Angeles. I know you don't want to give out what the name of it is or anything like that, but can you give like a region? Is it in LA proper? Is it in Hollywood? Is it the West Side, or is it where did this happen? Was it close to where the body was found?
Those are great questions. I'm going to punt, Jeff. That's all you. I mean, I have the answers, but I'm not going to answer.
It's in LA.
It's in LA. Okay. All right.
And Jeff, it's pretty exciting in this timeline that we discovered last week that indicates the location of the motel. So share a little bit about that because it's mind blowing.
Well, just the entire trail that we've been building up, because again, we got in this without any biases whatsoever. There was no filter whatsoever. We just wanted to go where the evidence led us. And thankfully, we were able to amass an amazing set of files, some of which, like we've said before, have never been released to the public. But it becomes very apparent once you read all these files and compare them and reread them and double check different things, it becomes very apparent that there was only one person that was capable of doing this that these files point to. And that all leads back to one exact location, being this motel. So besides different breadcrumbs that were dropped along as the killer played this game, overwhelmingly, there's a huge amount of sworn grand jury testimony, eyewitnesses that bring up this motel and what they saw the morning of January 15th, 1947 as well. And what some of these eyewitnesses saw in terms of entering in or looking through a doorway, of seeing blood in this room and where they placed the blood, totally corroborates what we would find almost 80 years later, because we found blood in the exact same spots.
And to add to that, our suspects' fingerprints are all over this place.
Wow. Crazy. How did you, just real quick, once you designated this motel as a primary target, number one, because I saw the photos, you guys tore that place apart. So number one, how did you get access? How did you get the permission to tear it apart? I mean, it's like, that's pretty, I mean, we've done these things before. I mean, we go in there and we're like, that's a pretty significant thing to get permission for.
Rob, I'm still taking people to dinner, Rob.
Well, yeah, that's a Lenny question for sure.
Well, and this was entirely the right tool for the right job. And believe me, Lenny was the right tool for this job. Because I remember the very first time we visited the motel, because I just wanted to check it out. I wanted to see it, and I tried to rent the room. So I went up to the counter, gave him my money. The maid was, or actually the person behind the counter was giving me the key, and her cell phone rang because they don't actually have a real telephone, landline telephone at the place. So she answered her cell phone, said, hung up, and then took the key, took it back, and then handed me my money back and said, I'm not allowed to rent you a room. And so we knew we were going to have a problem at that particular point. So we had to literally wait around all day long for the owner to eventually come back over, and then we got Lenny all over him.
Cool. How long is
Lenny,
that?
I'll let you take it from there.
Well, before that, how long has this owner owned this motel?
Great question, and I can get into it a little bit. I mean, it's like the dew drop in right now, Rob. Cindy, I know you're well aware of those lovely places.
Yeah,
it's a foreign entity. It's owned by foreign folks, not to give out locations and whatnot. So I kind of had to, the old adage, if you can't dazzle them with brilliance, baffle them with.
Yeah.
So I did. We laughed. We told some stories, and long story short, he gave us access to get in there. Now, once we got in there and started looking around and putting things together, we all thought, well, geez, we got to tear this place apart somehow. Because we're not going to find anything. We're talking 100 years later here. We're a crime scene folks. I don't know. We can get into talking a little bit about how many layers of paint had to be taken off of these walls and whatnot. But I had to really do some fancy conversating with this individual, and we became friends. Him and I. I mean, it was fun. And we go back and forth, and we had a lunch one day, and I kind of gave him some funny stories and whatnot, and he was on board. I mean, he was completely cooperative. He was a little concerned about his relative who owned the place, who lived many, many, many miles away in another country. But I said, look, I'll take care of it. No worries. And we did what we had to do. So once we got in there, it wasn't a home run. It was a grand slam.
Yeah.
Well, and don't let Lenny sell this short. What he just described to you took 6 months.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure.
But years later, I shouldn't say years, let's say a year and a half later after discovering this evidence, the motel owner made it a point to express how important it is that justice happen for anybody at any time. So for Lenny to put the kind of effort in, and then us to discover this evidence, and then really to have them so passionate about this case, it was kind of full circle. We were all extremely touched, and these people are saints. I mean, God bless them for letting us tear this room apart and put it back.
Well, and the truth was they let us do it twice. Because we went in, we tore one part of the room apart. And I remember saying at the end of the extraction process to our forensic people, because we spent over 60 hours dismantling this room. And I kept on saying, what about this wall over here? Should we check out this wall over here? And they're like, oh, no, it'll be fine. We found tons of stuff here, blah, blah, blah. And like I said, it corroborated totally what was in the
You're listening to this podcast, so I know you've got a curious mind. Here's a helpful fact you may not know yet. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save over $900 on average. Pop over to Progressive.com, answer some questions, and you'll get a quick quote with discounts that are easy to come by. In fact, 99% of their auto customers earn at least one discount. Visit Progressive.com and see if you can enjoy a little cash back. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $946 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2024 and May 2025. Potential savings will vary.
At DSW, we ask the important questions, like, what shoes are you going to wear? Whether you're prepping for wedding season, festival season, or just planning the ultimate vacay, the right shoes can make or break an RSVP. So own the moment. You've got big plans, and we've got just the shoes. At the perfect price, of course. Get ready to get ready with Designer Shoe Warehouse. Head to your DSW store or DSW.com today and let us surprise you.
The sworn witness's testimony. But we'd get more files later on that indicated the wall that we had torn apart and ripped into 7 layers of drywall to get back to the original plaster wall, where the bed is currently, is not where the bed was in the 40s. It was on the wall that I had been pointing to saying, hey, should we hit this wall here? So we actually had to ask the owner if we could go back and do it all over again. And that's actually, we're so thankful we got those set of files, and we're so thankful we went back, because that's where we found that hidden area that had been walled up.
All right, well, let's talk about that. There's the first photo. It looks like obviously someone's forensically has a swab, and there's a small plank. It looks like a piece of molding or something like that.
Actually, a baseboard from actually, yep, in that hidden area. That's where that was extracted. That was the baseboard against one of the walls inside there. The amazing thing about that.
What is this hidden area? Let me stop. What are you talking about? Because it looks like it's something. It was like a section that was walled over. Is that correct?
Correct.
So describe to us, I mean, people are going to see the photographs as we're talking about them. So this one is like the one I'm talking about. You can see the inside of this wall that you cut out, and there's a forensic tech bending over and examining something at the base of that. It almost looks like a closet that was walled up.
Correct. It was like an alcove area, recessed area, much bigger than a traditional closet and everything. But we were able to date doing the forensics on the building materials and everything, because we had a contractor there with us that was going through saying, hey, this wasn't utilized back then. This isn't the way they did stuff back then. So we had that dated to the late 40s as well, with, again, the building materials and how it was actually put together. So we knew that it had been walled up sometime not long after the murder itself. Now, just on a side tangent, if you don't mind me getting into, is that we know from the files that the killer would move his family back into the motel around March or April of 1947. So only a couple months afterward, he moved his family back in there. And we were just shocked and surprised about that. They lived there for an entire week. So we had to go back. We had to look at some more files. We had to go back and talk to a couple more eyewitnesses. And we were able to find out that during that time that they lived there for a week, during that time in 1947, is that he didn't go out. Now, this was the type of guy that participated in a lot of crimes. This is the type of guy who was always dressed very, very well, because he stole all his clothes. He always made sure his appearance was number one. But for that entire week, he did not leave the motel. He only wore coveralls. He wore work clothes. There was a bunch of wood stacked around the incinerator in the back. He was constantly painting as well, as the eyewitness remembers him washing his hands off with turpentine back by the shed a lot as well. So we were able to piece all this together, that during that time, and a couple months after the murder, he would go back and repaint a lot of those rooms and wall up that hidden area as well.
Can I, Jeff?
Yeah.
Can I talk a little bit about my visitor?
Please.
When we went to room number 3.
Sure.
So one of the key interviews witnesses would be our suspect's daughter. Okay. She was around 2 at the time, 2 or 3. We can get into the sexual abuse that went on for years with her father and what he did to her. And the reason I know this is because I interviewed her for hours. She actually is the one that identified not only the room, but the position.
So this is the daughter of the killer.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. She identifies not only the room, but the position of the bed, the way it was in the room that we did not at the time even think about. Am I correct, Jeff, with respect to the bed itself? So we all thought it'd be a great idea to take our witness to the scene of the crime. So I rolled in, we got out of the car, we had a nice conversation in the vehicle, and she looked very worried, very nervous. She wasn't shaking, but you could just tell in the tone of her voice that something was up. So we exited the vehicle and we walked towards the infamous room number 3. I opened up the door and she fainted in my arms.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my God.
And started shaking considerably and said, "Can you get me out of here?"
Oh.
Keep in mind, she was 3 years old at the time.
Oh.
So I didn't even have to say anything. That speaks volumes in itself, the way she reacted, the way she carried on back in the vehicle, what she has said, how she had stayed there. She remembers at that age. Obviously, it was a horrible impression for whatever reason that was embedded in the back of her mind. But she reacted. That her reaction was just unlike anything I expected, to be honest with you. I was hoping to get in there and discuss and talk about a few things, but we didn't get that far. We got across the threshold and we made a U-turn and got out of there. But, you know, again, I can go on and talk about conversations with her and what she had told us. And but there are many interviews that went on and folks we had spoke to that really was huge part of this investigation.
Lenny, just as follow-up, what happened in that room, Rob and Cindy, if you don't mind, let me just say this real quick, is that we learned how trauma just has the tendency to sear memories into your brain and everything. And this individual has gone through a tremendous amount of trauma in her life. But one of the things that really stuck out to me when Lenny had brought her in the room and everything is we asked, yes, what's different about the room? And the very first thing she said, yes, the bed was over here, which we had already knew from the new files. But we had always been told historically that there was always carpeting in that room. There was never any mention of tile or, wooden floor or anything. It was always carpeting. So then our witness then looked from where the bed was to the floor and she said, oh yeah, the floor is different. And I just jumped in there like, yeah, we knew that it was carpeting. And she's like, no, it was a particular type of tile. Then she described the tile in great detail, the pattern, what it looked like, the color, absolutely everything. And I just thought this is one of those rare times, actually the only time that she's told us something that just didn't quite match, that we couldn't corroborate with another set of files. So we're like, okay, we'll let that one go. And then the next day we began the extraction on the room, demolition, tearing it apart, and we uncovered that area that had been walled up. Once we got in there, there was like a substrate on the floor. We removed that, and underneath that was the exact tile that she had described to us the day before.
Wow.
Everything that she described.
I'm looking at it right now. Was it tile or was it like that old linoleum?
Yeah, it was like the old linoleum. Linoleum, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's what it looks like.
Yeah, she described it, to a T in impeccable detail the day before we found it.
But think about that. I mean, at that age, and to remember vividly I'm no psychiatrist or psychologist, right? But I'll tell you what, I was amazed.
Yeah, it's interesting because we have another case we're working on where the woman was 5 years old when her mother was strangled by her father in another room. And she was convinced that her father had something to do with the case. He later confessed to it 43 years later. But what was interesting is that because she was so young, but she had vivid kind of sense memory of whatever because she heard them argue and stuff like that. What she did was they had hired a forensic hypnotist to bring her under, and she basically guided her through that day. And basically, she could recall a lot more based upon that 43 years later, which I thought was interesting. So I'm sure this woman had, this woman that you're talking about is in her 80s, right?
Yeah, and I put her under hypnosis because the interviews that we did for hours upon hours, she was absolutely, from Jump Street, she said, no way, my father had nothing to do with any of this. What are you talking about?
Got it. So you were basically tapping into her brain with all the questioning you had, and she was recalling this stuff.
Well, actually, Lenny, if you remember when we first reached out to her, she said, hey, I know some stuff. Well, the first thing she said is that my dad was a madman, which is not normally the first word that comes to mind when you talk about your father. Hopefully it's not the first thing that comes to mind when you talk about your father. But she did tell us that she had asked her mom later on in life, did dad have anything to do with this? And she said, when we asked her what she thought, she goes, I'm just going to answer you like how my mom answered me when I asked her. And that was, he may have done it just as likely as he may not have done it. They were just totally riding the fence on that one. They didn't know. And so she had decided she's never talked to the police or press before, never been interviewed before, always avoided anybody that approached her wanting to ask her questions about it. But she decided it was time. She wanted to know. She wanted to find the truth. And that's when she started working with us. Lenny started interviewing her, and stuff she was saying was corroborating what was in the sworn grand jury testimonies that we had. And it just, everything just fell into place and totally dovetailed. We never had to break, bend any evidence at all. Everything totally fit together perfectly.
And how do you not interview a family member over a number of years, ever? Until we show up. I mean, how many years later?
I know that's the thing. It's like, how could they've never interviewed her? I know it happens all the time. We deal with this a lot, but at the same time, it's like, again, you guys are in this fortuitous spot with this case. It's obvious that, all your hard work has led you to this, where this woman is going to talk to you when she doesn't talk to anybody. So it's another piece of the puzzle that I think is incredible.
Well, she checked off a whole lot of boxes for us as well. Assumptions we were making, ideas, thought process. A good Q&A person kind of knows what kind of questions to answer. Excuse me. And she was a fabulous witness. I tell you, she brought tears to my eyes in a couple of conversations on what this madman did to her. She identified some physical things that were funny later on, but not so funny when we were talking about it. And I don't know if we want to even talk about it now, but why did I have any idea Kim was going to say
behave yourself, Lenny?
But anyways, it was it was such an interesting, just with her now, and I'm not talking about the other million people we spoke to, but she was fascinating, Rob. I mean, Cindy, I'll tell you, it was just, you know me, I like to have fun, but I also have a serious side of me, and I went back and forth, and it was really, I made her laugh, I made her cry, she made me laugh and cry. It was great conversations. Yeah,
that's incredible.
She did share, Rob and Cindy, that she spent a lifetime wondering if her father was connected to this and killed this poor woman. Can you imagine? We're all standing there and everything she's saying is true. Everything is matching the case files that we had already researched for probably 2 years by the time we met with her. And for her to say that my entire life and my mother's entire life, we wondered. And as you said, nobody questions her because they believe that children don't have an accurate recall of this information, possibly. Who knows in 1947 what the investigators were thinking? However, you could also say, well, is this a blessing? Because after 80 years and going through the trauma and a lifetime with this person as a father figure, maybe all of that helped all of these memories in this conversation and her coming forward happen today. Maybe it wouldn't have happened in 1947, 48, 49, 50. So everything's meant to be, I guess, for her as a victim now 80 years later. She's not, Elizabeth wasn't the only victim.
I was just going to give you one key component of this conversation, and I hope Kim doesn't yell at me. We were trying to identify a key suspect or key some person that was involved with who we thought with the suspect, and we needed to identify this guy. So we decided to do a photo array. Now, mind you, we're talking, she was young, single digits, 3, 4, 5, 6 years old. And we go through the photo array and
just don't say a name, Lenny.
I would never say that, Sherry. So we get to a specific photo and boom, she stops. She goes, that's blah, blah, blah. And in fact, I'll tell you a story. I was with my father and that person, and we were heading to a location, and apparently I spoke out of school, and this guy turns around and burns me with his cigarette. Now, just think about that. How do you remember at the age of 3, 4, 5, whatever she was, not only does she identify a person that I needed to figure out who he was and how he was part of this whole thing, but she gives us a specific story about it. So, Kim, how did I do? Okay.
Very good.
Right, so, and it just goes on. I mean, I can tell you, we all can tell you stories.
Well, here, I gotta follow up here. I mean, you can't talk about the name, but did this person that she ID'd and basically said he burnt her with a cigarette at a very young age, is this someone that is related to the case?
Yes.
Okay. So okay. It's like playing Clue with you guys.
Somewhat significant related to the case. I mean, let's go back to the 40s, the corruption. Was there, the Mickey Cohens of the world out there on the West Coast? Was there other folks involved with what was happening out there in Hollywood?
No, you had it right the first time.
You had it right the first time, that's for sure.
So, again, we're just connecting the dots and putting that puzzle together. And as suspects and people we needed to talk to, and names were popping up in interviews, we had to put everything to bed, and we did. And she was instrumental in not only identifying, but telling some crazy stories about each and every one of them.
Wow, that's crazy.
And she was not the only witness either. We have another witness testifying that was never interviewed, that murder occurred in that location. So think about it. We have who we deem to be the killer's daughter saying, yes, my father was connected to this location. We have the 1949 and 1950 grand jury files. We have files that have never before been seen by the public, all that are lining up saying that, yes, the victim was here, the killer was here, the connected individual was here. And to see all of those facts that were never shared with the public, never shared with the press, and were suppressed, quite frankly, from the grand juries, that's what led us down this road. That was the huge catalyst to breaking this case wide open.
Got it. I'm going to, I want to put some things together, but I think I'm going to get shut down, so I'm not going to do it. But because I think you're telling me Lenny in code, but I don't want to voice it.
I'm laughing, Rob and Cindy, because I know you both, and I know this is bugging the hell out of you. So, which is good.
Well, let's talk more about the crime scene in this hotel, in this room. The pictures. I mean, it almost looks like you guys are doing an archaeological dig. It's really, you tore it apart. So you tore this place apart. You tore one wall apart. Did you find anything from the first wall, or was it the second wall with the room is where you found it?
Okay, so like I said, we spent over 60 hours dismantling this room, and quite frankly, in the first 15 minutes, we found blood evidence, and everyone was ready to pop the champagne and whatnot. Then it's like, oh well, don't celebrate yet. They didn't use this material back then. It's like, oh, so we had to keep on going, digging and digging and digging. Thankfully, the original walls were never fixed or repaired. What they would or torn down. What they would do is actually bring in a layer of drywall and smack it up against the plaster wall. And then over the years, the room just got shorter and shorter because they just kept on adding drywall and drywall and drywall. So essentially, we had to go in and break through all of those. So it looked like we just peeled an onion. You had 7 layers of drywall that were just peeled back. And then once we found the original plaster wall from 1947, it was covered in latex paint. We know that latex paint wasn't a thing back then. We had to find lead-based paint. So that's when our criminalists had to get out their scalpels. So they went from crowbars and chisels now down to their scalpels. And it was a lot like a fossil dig because they'd have to get in there, begin to thinly slice it, peel it back, and see what was underneath it. And they kept on going through several layers of paint till we got down to the original lead-based paint. And then that's when we found the samples that were collected. And yes, they were first confirmed with a presumptive blood test. And they were also given a Kasselmeyer presumptive blood test. And all of them illuminated for human blood.
Wow.
And
now,
again,
how do you know whose blood it is?
Well, currently that is being tested. That's with because when you get into DNA of this age, we know 2 things. Number one, it's very old. And unfortunately, anything in the world of DNA over 50 years old is considered ancient. So there's not too many labs that are able to do that. 2, we know somebody tried really, really hard to clean this up. Not only from the samples that we found, we could tell that somebody had really scrubbed them dry, or in some cases just painted right over them because the paint wouldn't mix. The layers of paint did not match in color exactly. So we know somebody tried really hard. And that's also corroborated by the grand jury sworn witness testimony as well, is that somebody went in morning of January 15th, 1947, found this room covered in blood and tried very hard to clean it up himself. Didn't give it to a maid, but the owner of the motel cleaned it up himself. So with that being said, you have ancient DNA with highly corrupted DNA. So there's only like 4 or 5 labs in the entire world that can specialize in that. Plus then you have the added issue of mixtures. It's a motel. How many other people's DNA may be on that as well? So you need to work with a lab that's able to isolate all these different DNA mixtures. And to this date, they've been able to isolate female DNA from a major bloodshed event. They were able to sequence the DNA. And right now they're working on comparing that with cheek swabs from the victim's family.
Yeah, and we were lucky enough that DNA could be sequenced. When you're talking about, again, ancient DNA that's been scrubbed, that's been painted, contaminated by who knows what in 80 years, to actually be able to build those strands of DNA as something we never imagined they would say.
It's fascinating. Science is fascinating.
Oh, it's incredible. In fact, even our one of our criminalists pulled me aside and she was like, "Jeff, don't get your hopes up on this. This stuff is so old. It's so corrupted. they're probably not going to be able to pull DNA out of it, but they were. And they were able to sequence it from all the samples as well.
And so now you're cross-referencing it from surviving family members?
That is correct as well.
Okay, cool. How many surviving family members are there?
There are several, yes. I was going to say we're 2 generations away. Elizabeth's 2 sisters recently passed within the last 2 years, and which is really quite sad because we're right there to give them the answers that the family's always been looking for. So the daughter of the sister, so a niece of Elizabeth, is working with us, as well as a great niece. And there are some other parties in the family that are not quite ready to come forward, but very supportive of what we're doing. So 2 generations are working with us.
And I just want to reiterate again, is from what the eyewitnesses at the motel saw on January 15, 1947, where they described the blood to be, is exactly where we found it as well. One person who was actually the maid at the motel described how she saw the blood along the baseboard leading into the alcove, the hidden walled up area that we had found and everything, and how blood had got back there. And the amazing thing about that photo that you picked out earlier of that baseboard is that it had not been painted on the bottom side. So any type of major bloodshed event where blood would have got underneath there, that piece of wood would have just soaked all of that up. So that was just a godsend, a miracle in itself that we were able to find that.
Would have been nice to find the blood-soaked sheets and blankets that were thrown in the dumpster behind the building, but we were too late.
Yeah, all the blankets, all the sheets and everything, that all went in the incinerator.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we do have witness testimony to that as well. We know this event occurred there. We know it happened at the time of the murder. We have the sworn eyewitness testimony to place the killer, and as I mentioned, an associate, friend, a connected party to this case, as well as the victim. They were all there. Then you have testimony coming out years later corroborating that against the files, and then the private files that we have slamming that home. It is indisputable that this was the scene of the crime.
Yeah, and factor into the equation too on the target location, who owned it, who worked there. How does a maid see blood-soaked sheets and blankets and doesn't call the police? Somebody might have shut her up.
Exactly.
We
on that and why all of this happened the way it did.
Well, and actually the police had just been to a week before the murder. The police had been out there to arrest the motel owner for domestic disturbance. He's also in trouble for mail fraud. So he wasn't going to call the police no matter what he found. And that's why he cleaned it up himself.
Yeah. Then you had the fact that this motel did not have a certificate of occupancy. I went through the real estate records from the time that the structures went up. And this motel was not open to the public when this murder occurred. So you talk about walling off sections of the room. You talk about scrubbing the blood evidence, painting the walls, doing everything you can to conceal this evidence, burning everything that was in the room in an incinerator. This is 1947, January 1947. Then you get to 1949 when the LAPD and their criminalist, Ray Pinker, show up at this particular location. And there's no blood evidence found. This is why.
Yeah. Everything had been painted over and rolled up.
I want to talk a little bit about some of the evidence as you were gathering it. Obviously, Lenny put together a crack, forensic team to go through this. And looking at the pictures, it looks like they're doing everything by the book. But usually now these people they're obviously not, they're private people, correct? Or retired? Or
no, they're active criminalists today.
No, I know, but do they work for like a government or city or whatever like that? Or are they contracted?
One of the biggest law enforcement agencies in LA.
Okay, great.
But they
So
they did not do it in an official capacity.
got it. But at the same point, because they're doing it in an unofficial capacity, even though they're technically certified to do all this stuff, because I just know it because we're dealing with DNA on the other case that Lenny and I are dealing with. And so there's a lot of questioning of whether or not, all right, is it, you guys documented everything. People don't like, usually people in establishments don't like, well, if that was like obviously there's no going to be charged in this case, but just from a forensic standpoint and a legitimized standpoint, would they recognize that information because it was done independently without their supervision or their blessing? I know, for us, we understand because we've done all that stuff before. We've drained ponds looking for human remains on our own, and then we had to call in the medical examiner when we found something. It's happened to us a couple times, but until the active law enforcement get involved, it's almost like, well, it's still, we're not sure. But even though you guys have all the receipts and you've documented the process, I mean, that's the only thing that I was curious on how you feel, because you guys did an amazing job, but sometimes that's their way of getting out of it, law enforcement and the powers that be, saying, well, we didn't do this. Independent people did it. Regular people did it, even though they hired people to do this. So I'm just curious on what your thoughts are when, because that's always the case when you do these investigations. You're always going to have these naysayers. They go, well, they don't have the right information. This, that, and they start second guessing everything you do. And they go, it wasn't the police. So it's not a really authentic investigation.
No, every I was dotted, every T was crossed. This was handled like an authentic, real law enforcement investigation.
And once we are able to tell you who did it, they did it by the numbers, and they're pretty good at what they do, and their reputation is certainly out there.
Yeah, we thanks to Lenny and her team, we picked experts that couldn't be argued with, who were going to follow the process, because that is, again, as you say, the first thing they do. They try to smear the credentials of those who are involved. They cannot be smeared as far as their education, their abilities, and their professionalism. They did a full chain of custody. Mm-hmm. And the lab that was used, again, is one of the top leading 5 labs in the world that jumped at the case, jumped at the opportunity to test this evidence for this case.
Mm-hmm.
There was not any point in this investigation, Rob and Cindy, where we shut the barn door after the horse got out.
Yeah.
We what you just said, we had thought about that, and we certainly made sure that that didn't happen.
Yeah.
And we're talking about a lab who has emerging technologies that even the LAPD do not have resources to, unless they were to send it out to an outside party.
Mm-hmm. Is this lab in Texas?
Yes.
It's in the United States.
I already know who it is.
Yeah, well, we've been dealing with ancient DNA too from the 60s, so we know how it goes.
Yeah.
But no, that's fantastic. I mean, you guys have clearly, done your homework, and having Lenny and all of his amazing people that he brings in on these teams, no one's going to be able to argue this. You guys have really done your due diligence, which is very impressive, and we're excited to hear more and to see
exactly what
you guys have accomplished here.
We're going to keep on shaking this tree until you guys spill something out.
Well, Cindy, put it in a perspective. if we're spot on, and we know we are, you've got a victim that's been cut in half, drained of all her blood at this target location known as Ground Zero. And the body, both halves dumped somewhere else and strategically placed in a position where we kind of know why from there. So it's bone chilling if you think about everything.
Oh yeah, it is a bone chilling case, and I think that's why people are so curious about it, because it's so scary that you can't even believe that a human being could do this to another human being. And I think that's what the fascination is. People want to know who could do something like this and what's wrong with them. Like, we don't want to ever see anything like this again. It's terrifying what happened to this poor woman.
It just reminds me of the torso killer in Manhattan.
It does.
You know,
it does. It's very similar.
Richard Cottingham. You know, it's just we were just talking about him the other day. You know,
but I think it's amazing what you guys have done, and we're so excited to see the final result.
Exactly, you're killing it.
I know, seriously.
A beautiful girl. She's on the East Coast. You know, her and her sisters, and wants to go out to LA. She wants to become a big actress, and she's doing her best, and she's drop dead gorgeous. And like I tell my kids, show me your friend, I'll show you your future, kind of a thing. Sometimes you get involved with the wrong people, you go down the wrong road. She prevented that. She actually went back home at one point and scared to death, said, I don't want to go back out there. Something happened to her. That was another interview I did on the East Coast where she's from. I said, well, what did she say? She said, well, she had to go back out, but something happened. She did. So, now I'm like you, Rob and Cindy. Now my cop radar goes up. I want to find out what happened.
Right.
So, I mean, we certainly, as this thing played out and every avenue or every road we went down, boy, I'll tell you what, it grew legs in a hurry. And we put a lot to rest. So you'll like it. Enjoy it.
We're interested in hearing more, and hopefully, we'll have to do another section, another podcast. Kind of, you guys can tease us some more with your information.
Well, and too, for the sake of the short family, please, share the QR code in the web link for the petition to release Elizabeth's autopsy. It's been 80 years. There's never been an autopsy report held this long in LA County's history. And there's no reason at this point to withhold this autopsy report. The Short family has spent decades trying to get a copy of this report. We need the public's help. This podcast that we're so blessed to be on with you is a way for us to share with the public how much we need justice for Elizabeth, and to tie up the last loose ends, as Jeff said, for the motive. We need to see some final details in the redacted copy of the autopsy report we have. It is time to release it to the public. It is time for everyone, please, to pile on. Just take 1 minute, go on to change.org, Justice for Elizabeth, and sign the petition. We need 500,000 to 1 million signatures. Please help the Short family.
I'll add to that too. I mean, the LAPD, I get it. They keep things close to the vest. I did it when I was working. They all do. I understand that, but I just want to get a shot at them. Let them know, look, we're not out there to take curtain calls. We don't care. Kind of like when I ran the largest task force of its kind in the world. Look, we make an arrest of a high-profile person that just committed a triple homicide. Hey, run to the microphone to announce the arrest of. I don't care. Like Tommy Lee Jones said in The Fugitive, Harrison Ford, I don't care. We're just, and that's it sounds simple, but that's basically what it is. And again, I'm not here to bash law enforcement, but that autopsy report would be a home run for us. We'd be able to close one little piece that we need to close, and we're working. We'd love to work with the LAPD. I mean, we're here to get this.
Yeah, I mean, it's a common problem with especially these ancient cases. Like the one, this is older than the Alcatraz case, and I find it ridiculous. In Alcatraz, we're still trying to get the same kind of information. Release it, and then why have it be redacted at that point? I mean, there should be some sort of moratorium or some sort of threshold after, after 50 or 60 years, knowing that people associated with the case, and this one's 80 years. So it's like there's got to be some sort of, because now it's historical investigation. It's not even relevant. It's not relevant to anybody but the victim's family. I mean, it's like anybody who's been involved in this thing is, as far as investigative and as far as the legal aspect, are long gone. And so it's like
that, Rob, you take let's take a high-ranking official with LAPD. I would sit back and say, geez, I wonder what these guys got. Yeah, sure. Take a look at what we have.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
We may help you. I mean, it's not a big deal. Hey, I've been there. I was at the top of my, food chain in my department, and I get it. So, but hey, hopefully, they'll do that, and then we can really put this to bed.
Absolutely.
Especially at a time where the LAPD has admitted they do not have the resources, the manpower, the financial resources, the manpower, or the time to dedicate to these old cases. They met with us many times. They know we've been investigating this case for 5 years. We have been very open and cooperative with them, but they do not have the resources. If you don't have the resources, then you're doing a disjustice to the victim and the victim's family. Enough is enough. Release the file.
Yeah, no,
absolutely. I mean, there's no reason at this point for it to be kept secret like this. I mean, you're trying to help the family. You're trying to get answers. They should just release it at this point.
Yeah.
There's just no logical reason to keep it hidden. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
And again, we're not asking it for it to be released to us, but to the public.
Yeah. That's what I mean. I mean, for the public, it's public record. It should be released to the public at this point. And we see this a lot, unfortunately. Even though they say you can get all these public records, you really can't. You know, they redact everything and they
don't have to give you
choose.
They don't have to give you a reason to deny a FOIA. They just don't, you know.
Yeah. Well, anyway. The statutes support the release of the file. Everything supports the release of the file. So release the file. And all of us, like yourselves, Rob and Cindy, we're going to continue working these cases and hopefully make some movement with some representatives and get some bills passed to create that timeline in which this information should be released for historic preservation.
Yeah, well, I think California is a tough one to start with. Probably find a bitter state to do it in there. It's a little tough.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah. Well, amazing work, guys. Can't wait to hear more. And
hey, I got one last question, Cindy,
Sure.
for you. Did those guys escape from Alcatraz, or did they die in the bay?
Oh my!
Oh, here we go. Here we go again.
Watch the show, Lenny.
Yeah, Lenny, watch the show that you're in.
All right, guys. Nice to see you.
Here.
Mitty knows that just when you thought you had your body all figured out, bam, perimenopause. Suddenly, your hormones are raging like it's puberty round 2. You're waking up at 3 a.m. and dealing with mood swings that have mood swings. Your ears are itchy, your jeans don't fit, you need an industrial-sized fan to cool down, and you've suddenly forgotten the word for microwave. Most women in perimenopause don't know that they are, even though it can last for 10 years. They also don't realize that most of their symptoms are treatable. That's why we built Mitty Health. Mitty is a company built by women who've been through it. Our menopause experts actually listen and treat the real symptoms you're feeling. Your symptoms aren't just common, they're treatable. Schedule a visit with a menopause specialist at Mitty. Visit joinmidi.com. Specialist-led care, virtual visits, insurance eligible. Midlife needs Mitty. Results may vary. Medications prescribed only if clinically appropriate based on a consultation with a clinician. Insurance coverage varies. Check with your plan for coverage.